Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. We are playing black. So d4, d5 is a good move. Our opponent makes a stake in the centre and allows the bishop out. We do the same thing. c4. Our opponent offers a pawn. We don't take it. We defend our own pawn and we also make space for our bishop to get out. Knight f3, knight f6. Knight c3 perhaps? It's certainly a move. Bishop g5. Okay, so our opponent pins the knight. We break the pin with our bishop. e3 lets the king's bishop out. We castle, get our king to safety. Okay, so we're going to play h6 here and ask a question of the bishop whether it wants to take the knight or back off. Then when it backs off, that's not normal, but it's also not bad. Bishop f4 is not bad. Do we not play c5 here? But you can also play knight b d7, I think might be more accurate. So we're going to play knight b d7. We're not going to play c5 and knight c6, although I think that's fine. And then after a bishop move, there's not a bishop move. Well, I think we've got to take that, although, maybe it's better to take with a knight. Take with a knight, bishop's got to back off. And then actually maybe we can create some pressure by playing bishop b4. Do you think? Taking with the pawn is probably the kind of, in quotes, book move. If you take with the pawn, is there some knight b5? Is that a problem? Probably is, isn't it? It probably is. You've probably got to take with a knight, because that defends c7 really nicely. I think our opponent will take with a knight, yeah. Now we're fine. We're pretty good here. Okay. What about the bishop check? Why not? The bishop check I think is quite good, It just means the knight's got to withdraw. I mean, they're not going to play queen d2, are they? The king could move, but I think it's knight. The knight comes back, yeah, and that's fine. And then we're going to play knight f6. We're going to play c6 at some point, although there's no rush. Our opponent may play a3. You want to play c5? You want to play bishop g4 and hit the queen? Kind of do want to play that. Is that wrong? Bishop g5, queen b3. No, there's no queen b3 because you take the knight. You could play f3, of course, which is a reasonably good move. Yeah, it's a reasonably good move. I don't know, it's a bit loosening. Okay, so sort of lining up lining up on h7. Why don't we play rook c8 with a view to playing c5? c5 is a little bit dubious, but we'll consider it. The point is it might leave you with a long-term weakness of an isolated queen's pawn. But still, creating some pressure on that queen's quite amusing. I really want to play c5 even though I know it's not really correct. Okay, I apologise for this. I don't even believe it's correct. It's just tempting. It's just short-term tactics, right? So what I want is cd. I see the knight is kind of vulnerable. Maybe we can push c4. It's kind of cheapos, so it's not really good chess. But it's not terrible chess. I mean, basically, right, where's that queen going? Where is that queen going? It's not easy, actually. I mean, so maybe it is quite good chess. I suppose the point is, you can't go to b1 because we just take the knight. The queen doesn't really have a square, to be honest. If you play pawn takes, we take with the rook. Then the queen... Maybe you take with the bishop, you see. And then you're threatening all sorts of discoveries. Okay. So our opponent really now is... Okay, so straight away the question is, let's take and just hit the queen. Let's just take and hit the queen. It's actually quite a good move, because if queen takes rook, we take with the bishop and we've won the game. If the queen moves to b3, we take the knight and we've won the game. Actually, if the queen moves to b3, we probably take the rook, and then the rook takes, and then we take the knight, and then we have won, because then when they take the bishop, we take the rook. So in other words, queen b3, I think the answer is rook c1, bishop at d2, fg. Yeah, so I think here we take here, and then when they take, you take on d2, and then if they take on g4, you take on c1. It looks like we've got something rolling here. Zimbabwe, our friend is from Zimbabwe. So we're 4 pawns up here. Now, we might lose a piece back. So, a good move is probably rook d1. And then we take on e3 twice, I guess. And then our opponent takes on g4. And then we take on g4. So there's probably a sensible sequence here. A likely sequence is rook d1, takes on e3, takes on e3, takes on e3, takes on g4, takes on g4. Do we want to take with the pawn? Then when our opponent takes on g4, we push. Maybe win a piece back. Maybe that's a better move. So in other words, DE takes on g4, e2, bishop e2 takes on f5. Takes on f4. I think that's actually very good. So the temptation to take on g4 here is very high. You kind of got to take on g4, otherwise you're losing. Of course, the rook can't take the bishop because the pawn queens, which will be a bit much. And so what really happened here? So that c5 move perhaps wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Perhaps I was a bit down on that c5 move. What would you do here? So probably the best move, it probably is bishop takes d2. And then we take the rook with the pawn, queen, and then they take back. So probably the best move, I would say, is white takes on d2, we take on d1 and queen, white takes back, and actually now we can't take on g4, but we can check on b6 and then take back on b2. So, but here's the funny thing. After, this is fascinating and actually lovely, after bishop takes on d2, we've actually got a check on b6. If the king moves, we take the queen and then we queen on d1. If the queen takes, we queen on d1 with check, and then we take the queen. So we actually go right up. We go up a lot. Okay, took that way. Okay, so now we take the bishop, yeah. Now we take the bishop, but I think this means We should really be winning this. Rook takes? No, nothing takes because it's defended. So, what are we up? A piece and a pawn. Okay, so let's get the queens off. We get the queens off, and then we just put the rook behind the passed pawn, and look, we do this, and you can't take the pawn actually because the fork wins the rook. You know, sometimes it kind of all goes right. It's so weird. I think probably in chess, when you're material up, it gets a lot easier. Also, maybe there's a morale factor, which, you know, I've been on the wrong end of a number of times. So that bishop and pawn are now like cemento, right? They're absolutely cemento. I.e., nothing can touch them. So the rook has to kind of babysit them. And what I might play is just rook c8, rook c1 and just swap. Or just rook c8 and then the rook enters. Very hard to stop that. So the knight's not really participating right now, but it doesn't matter. Like rook c1 is probably enough. But actually rook c2 followed by rook. Wow. I don't know. Maybe it's just rook c1. I really like that chess is so international. You know, you can play people from all these different countries. It's really awesome. Okay, let's go pawn hunting. Let's go pawn hunting because actually do you know what? I'm actually not going to. When they play rook b1, which they'll probably play. Okay. Okay, that's understandable. It's understandable to look for some counterplay. I assume you defend that with the bishop now. It's pretty sensible, that. Then I just play knight d7, knight d7, knight c5, which stops it all. But it's a good idea. Of course, noticing the fact there actually is a fork. There was a fork, wasn't there, on c6? Probably quite harmful, actually. Okay, so we've got to try and do something tricky here, because actually, do you know what? I've let this get out of control. I really have. It's quite shocking. I have let this get out of control. I'm just going to play this instinctively, but it's completely out of control. Is there a checkmate on the board? No, there probably is a threatened checkmate. But, yeah. There's a lot of threats here, actually, for black. But white generated some good counterplay there, to be honest. This is checkmate, no? Okay, I mean, I suspect black was always winning, but I should not have allowed that much counterplay. Should I? No is the answer. But I think black was always winning. Probably, yeah. Probably after c takes d. Good game. Thank you. So let's have a look at the analysis. Is there a button you can press to review it? If revenge motivates you to go for it, honestly, it doesn't. Yeah, look, they got a little. There's a little flicker at the end there. Okay, so what do we see? So this move is not typical, but it's okay. The engine wants c5. Look, knight takes was best. I want to see if pawn takes is even viable. I don't think it is. Okay. So after pawn takes, what do you do about this knight move? Bishop b4 check. Knight's got to go back. Okay, but it's kind of hairy stuff. We didn't want that. We wanted knight takes. Bishop b4 check, likes that. Likes that. Likes that. Likes the bishop move. Does not like rook c8, and at the time I thought it was bad. Would much rather play c6. Okay. But now c5 is a good move. This was good. Bishop d7 was better, but this was good. But this was bad. Oh, right. It wants bishop takes d2, but... Okay, fine. I mean, fine. To be honest... Look, pawn takes. It likes pawn takes. It likes e2. That was a good move. That move felt good to play. Bishop takes e2 was best. Well done. Because I should show you one line that really fascinated me. So the line that fascinated me was if you take with the bishop, I think the check on b6 is the killer. Yeah, queen b6 check. And then what you do is you take the queen, and then the bishop has to take your pawn, so you just win a queen. Because otherwise, like check, if they take, you queen with check, and then you pick up the queen at the end, which is kind of fire. So the thing is, this was a good move, this was a good move, this was a good move. Getting the queens off is fine. And then I was kind of indecisive. Yeah, rook c2 is better. Knight d7 wasn't good. Okay, but at the end of the day, knight c... Okay, this was a good move. This is no good because of the mate. But we were still winning, but that advanced pawn was making me nervous. And really, we shouldn't have allowed this. We should have just... I don't know. I suppose the human move would be just a swap. Takes, takes. And then what? I guess they're going to want to push. Takes, takes, and then stop it with a knight, or stop it with... You should be able to stop it with a knight, right? I suppose it's queening on the white square, though. It's a little uncomfortable, to be honest. Anyway, we won. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. See you soon.